It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Tuesday, February 13th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Provi in the media, the practical word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. Whew, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is a fresh new week, already Tuesday. I hope Monday was good for you guys. How was your Monday, by the way? Don't forget we have a Q&A Thursday every week, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, leave a like and comment on today's video. Let's build this community together. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. Now, this week's Sunday message title is Good Words Cannot Be Given in One Sentence. It Takes Time. So, wonderful Sunday message. Hope you guys enjoyed it too. I am officially on a break for the next 2 days. So Monday and Tuesday are my, I have breaks from the guests that are visiting. And I'm very, very grateful and thankful. The members are taking them out and stuff. So I get to just rest and sleep. You know, I have a lot of sleep debt that I have to recover from. You know, actually, you know what? There's one thing that I was thinking to myself. It's the 13th, February 13th. You know what that means? It means tomorrow's Valentine's Day. And guess what? I feel absolutely nothing. Like, I don't think I felt anything for Valentine's Day for like the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years. I like maybe even long, 20 years, 25. I don't know. Like, I don't really feel anything about Valentine's Day. I feel absolutely nothing, right? I don't even think it's a real day, to be honest. And I don't even know if it should be celebrated. Like, I remember sometimes at churches, they'd be trying to do, sorry. I'm saying this in a bad way, but, you know, churches will do things for Valentine's Day where people can celebrate together with God, you know, especially those that don't have a significant other, right? And you know, like, it's true, you know, the world is thinking about, you know, the lovers are thinking about each other, but in our time period, we can be thinking about the Holy Trinity. And, you know, some people, it's true, some people do get lonely on this day because of all their friends and colleagues who are doing things for, you know, who are going out with their husbands and wives or whatever it is, right? But, you know, we tell each other we can do things together with the Holy Trinity. Well, actually, here in Malaysia, I don't think Valentine's Day is a big thing. I don't. Like, especially not this year because it's in the middle of Chinese New Year, right? So I don't really think it's a big day at all here in Malaysia, maybe in Asia. And I think people are more concerned with their families instead of thinking about Valentine's Day. Maybe Valentine's Day is more of a Western thing. Like, I wonder if it's even that big in Asia, like it is in Western countries. Either way, I'm not sure. Just not a big deal for me, especially for, especially for a bunch of us that don't have like that physical significant other, right? But I found it very, very interesting. It's like, oh, here it is. And even if a church had something for Valentine's Day, I don't even know if I would really feel it. Like, I probably wouldn't even join it myself because I'm just like, it's not a big deal for me. Like, it feels like, if you did something for Valentine's Day at your church, it would be for the people who might be struggling with it, I guess. Like, for me, I consider it just another day. And what's the only reason? The reason I thought about Valentine's Day? Oh, because someone brought it up. My friend of mine brought it up in Malaysia. And he said, like, yeah, you know, we have like this thing going on Valentine's Day, so it's not really a big deal. So I was like, oh, okay. And I was all like, oh, wait, it's Valentine's Day. But for me, like, whatever it is, wherever you go, whatever part of life you're in, you're always going to see these, like, what do you call it? Couples and stuff like that. They're everywhere. So I'm just, I don't know. It's tomorrow. Do you guys have anything planned for it for church and stuff like that? I'm just curious. I'm not saying that it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying, are you guys planning anything for it? Right? And I think most of our listeners are in the 25 to 34 age group. I think most of us are. So it's probably going to be like maybe a third of them might be married and stuff. So I can understand that. But I also know that I talk to families like the husbands, and if you have kids, there's no such thing as Valentine's Day. Because, it's like you got kids to take care of. It's not like the kids take a break and say, oh, it's Valentine's Day. All right, mommy, daddy, guys can go off and do some romantic thing. No, kids are going to be kids. They don't care about Valentine's Day. It's not anything significant for them. So, yeah, I think it only really affects people who don't have kids and are couples. So in Providence, it basically means anyone who's been through the blessing and hasn't had kids yet. I think that's who it mainly affects in Providence, which is a very, very small group of people from what I know, especially because we've gone through the pandemic and spiritual Oppenheimer, and it's basically very, very few couples that are actually been blessed over the last 4 or 5 years. Either way. So, yeah, you know what, for me, I didn't know how much sleep that I had, after taking care of all these people. Like this morning, like today, I had, it's still Monday for me, and it's kind of later at night. It's like 6:15 p.m. at the moment, but this morning I was gone. Like I was so happy. There was no schedule, anything else. All the big stuff, like the meetings and meeting people, and it wasn't even me, it's just me taking the pastors around and stuff. And just to let you guys know is it's really interesting that when I say that there's these pastors from Korea coming, it's very different than what you think. Because I know a lot of people, when they think about, oh, there's pastors coming from Korea, and you think more about older pastors, right? These people are like, when you think about like touring pastors or people coming over to do meetings and stuff, you think of older people. These people are young. Like one of the pastors was 28. The other pastor is like 35, 36 or something along that line. They're very, very young, right? Or maybe they're considered young only because I'm old. I don't know. But yeah, it's a very, very different feeling because it's a very young vibe that they have. But I didn't know how much sleep debt I had. I woke up at like 12:15, like afternoon. And even when I woke up, still tired. And, I'm going to tell you this, it wasn't even a crazy schedule. It's not a crazy schedule at all. There's nothing that was so crazy that, I was like really, really difficult physically. And for me, I like driving. Driving is something that's very therapeutic for me. But the thing I think that got me really tired is the mental aspect. You know what I mean? Like when you're hosting or planning some event, and even if it's not physically draining, or people in this case, people have come over, I'm taking care of them. I'm the actual one that kind of made the idea for them to come over and stuff. But the mental toll is much higher. And I think that's what made it really exhausting, right? Like I said, today, tomorrow is a break day, so I'm really, really happy and free. Just going to relax, sleep, recover. And it's also kind of nice because tomorrow, the house is where I'm at, the house is going to be empty because the people who live here, the owners of the house, are going to be going camping for 3 days, so it's going to be quite like chill. So I was supposed to go camping, but ended up changing the schedule because there was a problem with not having enough tents and stuff. So now it's kind of more. I'm actually kind of happy because I am very, very relaxed, very relaxed. So and you know what, the schedule is going to be like this for a while still because the Korean pastor leaves on Friday morning, and then like I have to take him to the airport early Friday, like say 8 a.m. And then at 11 a.m. there's my friend from Taiwan that comes, and then later that night at 10:45 p.m. I'm picking up someone else at the airport too. So yeah, and that's going to be for about 4 or 5 days. And then once they leave, I have some friends from America coming right after. So I think they leave on the 21st or 22nd, and then my friends from America come on the 22nd, I believe, something along that line. But yeah, and I'm going to tell you this, there's nothing hard physically speaking, nothing close to like these physical things happen. Like it's not tiring at all, right? It's just, when you're taking care of people, like you want to make sure that they're having a good time, right? You want to make sure you're having a good time, and you're just thinking about, oh, what's the next place? Oh, here's the schedule here. Let's make sure we get here on time. I got to wake up by this point, pick them up here because they have to check out. Like there's just a lot of mental gymnastics that I go through, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of the reason why I'm tired, but I'm not complaining at all too because I really, really like meeting people. I'm very super like extrovert, so meeting people is very, very easy for me and such. But yeah, Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine. They're telling me that I have like a new mission. And they said, my new mission is Malaysian Diplomatic Public Relations Officer. It's because basically I'm inviting people over to Korea, to Malaysia, and I'm just taking them around and stuff, and whatever meetings they have to do, I take them to that too. But for me, I enjoy it. I enjoy it because I'm an extrovert. I like to hang out with people. I like to talk. I am not a sightseeing person, so that's not a big deal. But this next group that's coming, it's going to be a ton of eating, so I'm going to be super happy with that. So I do like to hang out with people, and I do like to talk with them too. But you know what? Thinking about, like, imagine if this became an actual mission, like a job, I think I would eventually hate it. That's what I think. Because I think to myself, no matter how much people like their jobs, in the end, it's still a job, and people eventually hate their jobs, right? So when we do what we like, when we do things that we like, it's voluntary, and you don't have to, you don't have to do it. You can not do it tomorrow or the day after. But when it comes to work, you always have to do it. Like in order for you to make money to keep the business going. And even if, and a job is like, even when you don't want to do it, you still got to do it. And that's kind of what makes it a job. So I think that's kind of, I think it's more of a testament to how big free will is to human beings. How big free will really, really is, and how much we value free will. Because it's true, we want to be able to do the things because we really want to do it. And we have the choice not to do it either. And I actually think that's a really big part of faith too. The difference between those that do it truly out of free will. Now, what does that mean? Like, I would say one of the biggest differences of myself right now compared to when I was running full time is this is actually one of the big questions I bring up to myself too is, faith is such a personal thing. It's between you and God, right? Faith is so personal. Right? It's not about what anyone else says or does. It's just between you and God. And what can make it impersonal is the moment we take, like, say, a spiritual mission. Because the moment you have a spiritual mission, like when I became a head leader, there's pressure. You have an image as a head leader. You have expectations that the members have on you as a head leader. And, imagine what you guys would really, really feel or think if, let's just listen to this, guys. What would you guys really think if a head leader starts missing like several pre-dawns every single week? Like, what would you honestly be thinking? And you'd have like some expectations of what a head leader should be like. And the head leader feels that pressure too, right? And yeah, I felt it when I was a head leader. Like, I really, really need to get for pre-dawn. Oh, I feel so terrible when I fall asleep during pre-dawn. I feel terrible if I don't do things the right way because of my position that I'm in, right? And now that since I don't have like an official mission, I don't really feel it much. And it really makes me think about my personal faith and my personal walk more. Like, it's how important this really is. Like, for me, I don't need to look good in front of anyone. I don't feel any expectation or pressure from people around me. And this is kind of where I can see myself and doing things like having faith because I want to have faith, right? And I think that's a very important thing that we should all be somewhat thinking about is, what is my faith like if I were to take everyone else out? If I were to take all the pressure away? If I were to take all the expectations from all the people around me away, you would end up with just you and God, and it's just your faith. And I would sit there and be like, okay, so if that's the case, right, then this is where you're really able to have that moment between you and God, thinking about, hey, here's my personal faith. This is something that's just between you and me. And whether I miss pre-dawn, no one's watching. Whether I don't go to service, no one's watching. It's just between you and God. It's between you and God. God is watching you, and you see yourself, and you know yourself too. And I was like, this is something that we really, as people, as myself running full-time Providence for 21 years, there was a lot of expectations on myself, how I looked in front of people, and these were just part of the equation. But now, for the last 4 years, I've been in a position where I can just look at myself. And it's just between, like, no one else can say anything to me. No one else has the expectations, right? I don't have an image to uphold, right? I just do what I want to do. And I feel that this is something that I have to look at and say, yeah, this is where my real personal faith begins. Right now, I'm not going to say it's bad to have an image to uphold. I'm not going to say it's bad to be kind of like feel pressure by expectations. Like in some cases, it's actually a good thing. It helps us out, right? But in the end, it becomes a very, very personal thing, and that's something that kind of made me think more deeply. Well, I've been thinking about this for 4 years. Like, oh, this is life without a mission. This is life, doing things because I want to do things. So yeah, that's something that kind of came up in my mind. I was thinking about this too. There was an interesting study done with boys and girls, and I was listening to it on a podcast, and the study was done with children, and it was talking about seeing the difference between boys and girls and how they interact and how they play, and it was so interesting to see the results. So like for boys, when boys have fun, they go out and play games. They play sports. Right? And they said that the two things that are very, very clear about when boys play, number one is they want a hierarchy. They want to know where they are, what position they're actually standing at. Like in a team, you're gonna have a captain, and they'll look up to the captain. They are the captain, right? They like the positions. Like say in a basketball team, you have the captain, like the best player, whatever it is. You have a leader. Right? And you look up to that person. And then on top of that, you have positions. You have different roles. And boys seem to like games that have these types of things, a clear hierarchy and a clear purpose, like a very clear win or lose. Right? So that's why sports, like boys really like sports. Clear winner, clear loser. Right? Hierarchy, where everyone is on the pecking order, who the captain is, what positions we have. They want to know exactly what their role is. Now, what they found with girls is very interesting too, is when girls play games, they don't play games with hierarchy. They don't play games with a clear purpose. Like there's no winner or loser. And one of the games they brought up is like, say, hopscotch. Hopscotch is just a game that you do. There is no like winner or loser. You're just doing it. Right? They're just playing. And they found that for girls, like remember, these are like kids in school, the most important thing to the girls is not the game itself. It's actually the relationship that they have with everyone they're playing with. That's what matters the most. The game itself is not important. But for boys, the game itself is important. So this is where it gets really like even more interesting than I thought is when there is dispute or when boys are fighting. Interesting thing is, the game holds a higher precedence. So the boys will still, hold the stuff in. They'll still play the game, and even if they don't like each other, they'll still play. They'll still play it, and after the game is over, everything is hashed out, and they move forward and they continue playing on the same team. Now, girls is really interesting because when the girls are fighting or when the girls don't like each other, guess what happens to the game? So let's just say 3 or 4 girls are playing hopscotch together, right? And all of a sudden, the girls start, there starts to be a fight or girls don't like each other very much, right? Guess what happens? The game ends and they just leave. Isn't that interesting? Because for the girls, it's not about the game. The game is not the important part. It's about the relationship. So once the relationship goes sour, the girls just stop playing and they don't talk to each other. There's no hashing out. They just leave, which is isn't that really interesting? Like for me, it's so interesting because I'm a guy and I understand the guy's position. But when I heard about this study, I was like, oh, that's what it's like. So that's what's in their mind kind of thing. And, when is the only time a guy stops talking to another guy? It's always when a girl is involved. As crazy as that sounds, right? There's a girl involved, and that's where these things start to happen, right? But it's so interesting because it just shows the difference between guys and girls, how different we really are and how God has made us. Like there was that other study, I think I told you guys about the study once where I think they left guys and girls in a room alone, like not with each other. They're just alone in a room for like 12 minutes. And in this study, like they were pretending to have another study going on, and then they made the guy or the girl wait in a room, right, for 12 minutes. And then after, they would ask the guy and the girl what they were thinking about. Like, what were you actually thinking about during those 12 minutes? And the biggest thing for guys, guess what? It was sports, sex, or nothing. Like those are the three big things. Is either about sports, it's either about some, opposite sex, whatever it is, or they thought about absolutely nothing. A third of them thought of nothing, I think, right? And the interesting part on the girls' side is the girls were going over conversations that they had with people in the past. Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting when I hear these types of studies, and I'm like, wow, the difference is we are so different from each other. And for me, when I hear these studies and I hear what girls are really thinking about, for me, it almost sounds unbelievable. Like, really? Like, you really think about that? And it's just super interesting how different we, like guys and girls, have been made. And how men and women, we complement each other. This is why men and women come together and they have they have families and stuff, and they are covering each other in their faults, in their bad parts and stuff like that too. And when they work together, they can make amazing things happen also. So for me, I found that to be something very, very interesting. I was like, wow, that's so interesting how the difference between us are. And I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, this is something that we should really, the more we study about this, the more we realize how we can not take care of each other, but how we're able just to work with each other too. So I thought that was quite interesting and awesome too. Yeah. Interesting studies though. So you guys tell me what you guys think about that. Of course, these are generalized, right? It's not 100%. It's generally guys think this way, girls think another way. Man, today is such a super slow day for me. Like it's like already 6:30 p.m., 6:40 p.m., whatever it is. And like I woke up late, just chilling, working on the podcast. Even when I was working on this, I usually get everything done before 2 p.m. I didn't even start working on this podcast till 5, right? And I have one more day like this just to fully recharge myself. So one more day of sleeping, get rid of that sleep debt, sleep in, and then I think I'll be fully recovered, ready for the next group. And the next group is actually quite chill because it's not even they're visiting for a mission or anything like that, just visiting. So yeah, poll. I have a poll, guys. New poll came up. It's about 2024 and how's your pre-dawn life going, right? So, just put in your average so far for the first 1.5 months we have for pre-dawn and how are things going for you. Just kind of get a glimpse of how we are starting the new year well, especially when it comes to pre-dawn also, okay? Today we have the practical word study and, of course, Provi in the media. And I am hoping that you guys... Provi in the media has a very interesting... a friend showed me this article. It's an awesome article, guys. And it kind of gives, it's the media talking about Sunseem's trial, what actually happened, what's the defense, and it's a very, very unbiased look at what happened during the trial. So when I'll read this, guys, you'll get a better look of why the trial ended up the way it did and what parts seem unfair and stuff like that too. Either way. Okay. So before we get to the practical word study, let's go into the first break of the day. All right, so let's get into today's word study. And every Tuesday we do have the practical word study. It's very interesting because a lot of people are on Chinese New Year right now over here in Malaysia, and it's interesting because of Chinese New Year. It's such a huge vacation time. I can already see my numbers on MSD go down during the Chinese New Year time. Like from the time it started, it's just so busy, right? Because when I talk to my friends who are in Chinese New Year, no one wakes up in the morning. Everyone's sleeping in. Everyone's eating. Everyone's with family. And it's such a relaxed vacation time. So I was like, oh, look at this. Chinese New Year also affects my MSD numbers too. Like the numbers go down a bit of how many people actually watch or listen to the Morning Star Drive also. But either way, so there it is, guys. That is, there's what? Sorry, I'm going to go with the practical word study. And two things I wanted to go over when it comes to this week's message. And the first one I want to talk about is there's a proverb. One of the first proverbs, it said, hell is easy to go to, but you can't get out. It's easy to fall into a deep pit, but you can't get out. And this was talking mainly about like non-believers and betrayers. But, for us, especially when it comes to us having our time of faith, falling into a deep pit is like a deep pit of sin. And there are those deep pits that you cannot get out of, right? Or the things that are just so hard to get out. You have to crawl out, like say, for instance, committing the fall or something along that line too, right? And this made me think a lot more deeply because, when we think about physically falling into a deep pit, we know that when you fall in, you just can't escape. But it also makes me think about how, as people who are in faith and we go through temptations and we go through things that we struggle with, it makes me think about how close we get to the edge of the pit. You know what I mean? Like later on in the Proverbs, it also says that it's about our wicked deeds, the wicked deeds that make us go into hell, which means our wicked deeds make us fall into a pit. And that would, it just made me think more carefully of the situations or the environments that I put myself into. For instance, this is not, just for instance, example is if you're someone that struggles with alcohol, then, going to the edge would mean to always hang out with people in places that there's always drinking going on and all your friends are constantly drinking, right? That would be, something that you struggle with, and you're putting yourself in that type of environment, which makes it very, very easy for you to do that. For some struggling with the opposite sex, then you put yourself into a position that you get close to, getting into a very awkward or position where you may even fall. Right? One thing Sunseem said, which was very interesting about the human mind, Sunseem said that, people don't want to eat the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, like Adam and Eve. But for some reason, they like to hang around the tree, right? So it's kind of funny when you think about it because it's so true. It's like human beings, we're so attracted to the danger. We like the danger. Like, even for me, think about it, I'm a rebel pastor. I like the rebelliousness at some points, right? And when there's some element of danger, or the possibility of danger, it gets exciting, doesn't it? Like it's for just human beings in general. If I think about myself too, as a human being, we go through many temptations in life. And sometimes we enjoy that danger. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why human beings, we just like the bungee jump. We like the skydive. We like to do dangerous things. It's exciting and it makes us feel alive. Like, if you always, think about it. A lot of us would think to ourselves is how boring would life be if we always lived in a safe way? Then we would never, because we would be like, oh, that'd be so boring. You don't get any danger in life. You wouldn't feel alive kind of thing. But don't you think it's kind of interesting how we like the danger? Like in the end, I think that if you did, you would put yourself in a really, really bad position and then you actually made the huge mistake, like wouldn't you regret like so badly to the point you wish you never did that? Like put yourself in that position? Like I've told you guys before that I've had, all throughout my life in Providence, I think 4 or 5 times, I've had dreams in my dream, I committed the fall, and then I would have to face myself and face God. and I would feel so much guilt, so much pain, and I would be lamenting and having so much regret in my heart. And then when I'd finally wake up from the dream, even though it felt so real, I would be so relieved. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, wow, thank you, God, that it's not real. And when I felt that guilt, and in the dream, when I really thought that I committed the fall, the pain was unbearable. The guilt was something I couldn't even hide from myself. And I'd wake up like, oh, it's not worth it. It's so not worth it. And here is God kind of showing me like, hey, why would you put yourself in that type of position anyways if you'd feel this terrible if you actually went through and made that mistake? And I think it's something that we do have to think about ourselves too is, are we looking too much for that excitement in life? Like trying to feel like we're alive or not? And, we kind of stigmatize people who have no fun, like, oh, no fun, and it's such a boring life and this and that. And I was like, yeah, that's so true that we are human beings. We kind of think in this way. And we want to take risks. But when it comes to things like, if we're using the example of committing the fall, right? That kind of risk is like so unnecessary. Like there's other risks in life. For instance, when it comes to business, in business, there's going to be risks no matter what. We're going to take risks, right? But the thing that I found super interesting is when it's like unnecessary risk. Like there's calculated risk that has to do with your life for your life to get better. But a lot of times, like the temptations we go through, like especially when it comes to the fall or things like that, it's really interesting that we're okay with that type of risk also, right? Like I think even for human beings, just in general, like even for myself, it's such a, like when what happened last year in 2023, we find out about the opposite sex issues, KJS and stuff like that too. It's very interesting because in our heads, for some reason, we thought that it would be impossible for something like that to happen. You know what I mean? We thought it would be impossible. So, yeah, it's very, very interesting. And I thought that first point was something that we need to kind of clear in our hearts and our thoughts, that it's better to live safer. Like especially when it comes to stuff it's unnecessary kind of thing, right? The second thing that I was thinking through the Sunday message was about doubt. So there's a bunch of proverbs on doubt. And there's a couple points in there, like, when people doubt, you can't grow if you doubt. And God won't use people who have doubt, right? He needs people who are absolute and convicted, right? And, of course, some of the downfalls of having doubt, like, for instance, when you doubt, that you get, psychologically, you're nervous, you're fearful, you're weak-hearted, you shake, right? And that's what happens when you have doubt. And when people doubt too much, then it eventually leads them to not believing at all. Because that doubt is kind of convincing you, like, oh, is this really true? Oh, is it really not true? Oh my gosh, what if it's not? What if it's this? And you just keep kind of going down that line, right? But the one great part about the message was, if someone who is strong and convicted tells these people who doubt, just continues to tell them, oh, it's not bad, it's this, it's this, it's this. Yeah, don't. And they explain it and they tell them. And the more you tell them, the perception of these people who doubt will change and they'll eventually believe again, right? And that's why those who believe should keep telling those people, right? And, obviously some people are going to start doubting again. But, how many times have we seen people who've absolutely believed, loved providence, confirmed who the Messiah is and stuff. But when the tribulation came, they start to doubt. Their hearts weaken, and then they need help, right? Like I said, I loved it from the Sunday message. It says we need to join forces in difficult times. And I think that's something that we have to really think about, is we really need to join forces in the difficult times. And for us in our practical area of who we talk to, we need to put good people around us. If you keep having people around you that are constantly doubting, that's a hard part too. If you only have those types of people, because remember guys, At some point in life, people are going to doubt. At some point in life, people are going to go through difficult times. That's normal. But if you have if you have a bunch of people that are over worried and over doubtful, and there are all these people around you, then it's gonna have a big influence on you. You need to put good people around you, and put good people around you. And it doesn't mean they're perfect. It doesn't mean that they'll never have a difficult time. It's just you need good people. And then we really need to understand is when we're doing really well too, we got to really support the people we have around us right now. Right? Because perceptions are going to change as we tell them, as we explain to them, right? And that's going to be something that's very important that we should really take into consideration is who are the people around me? And when you have good people around you, they support you. But on top of that, what else? We need to be those that are supporting those that are around us too. And I think that's a very, very important point for all of us to really think about, right? Are we supporting the people around us, right? Are we, when they're doubting, are we just listening or are we really, really helping them, right? And I think that's something that we can really think about also is, are we supporting the people around us? And do we have good people around us that are supporting us too, right? And I think that is something that we should really, really change and push ourselves towards also, to be those types of people. So those are the two things that I was thinking about when it came to the practical word study. Some of the first part is more of a perception. The second part is what we can do for those that are around us also. Okay? A little bit short today, but those are the two things that I thought about, all right? So that is the practical word study for today, which means that we only have one section left, which is Provi the Media. Great article. I think you guys will super enjoy this one too. But before we get into it, let's move into the second break of the day.
To live with God in my heart. The tears you shed pray all night long. Your love and light at the break of dawn. The days when you were gone. Your words stay here in my heart. I'll hold on to you tightly, Lord. Your word is your love, I'm not alone. Now even if this dark world is frightening, wind and waves and thunders crashing, no matter what, our love will not change. You're with me and I'm with you. I will always, always love you, no matter if the world forsakes you. From all the love and miracles through you, I've witnessed the truth. I'll fly high with you. I will never, never leave you, no matter if the world forsakes you. With all the love and blessings from you, I'll never forget all that you've done for me. To live with God in my heart. I will not waver to wrong thoughts. I'll stay right here where I belong. You suffered all along. Your wounds lie deep in my heart. We'll guard you, Lord, till your pain's gone. We'll comfort you, so lie in our arms. Now even if this dark world is frightening, wind and waves and thunders crashing, no matter what, our love will you, no matter if the world forsakes you. With all the love and blessings from you, I'll never forget all that you've done for me.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment of the day, and of course it is Provi in the media. And this week, great article someone sent to me, and I think it's something that gives it's like a very non-biased view of exactly what happened in the trial and what was the reason why something got the sentencing and everything. So let me go into this, and the name of the article is Key Issues Surrounding the First Trial Sentencing of Sunsignim, or Pastor JMS of the Christian Gospel Mission. Okay, so it says, Pastor Jung's defense team says there is no direct evidence, so we deviate from the principle of presumption of innocence and the principle of trial by evidence. And also they said, I don't understand the heavy sentences imposed in a medieval witch hunt style trial framed as heresy. And also claimed the trial was proceeding without clearly providing the word brainwashing, which is the main premise of the indictment. So let's get into the full gist of the entire article. It says, on December 22nd last year, Pastor JMS of CGM was sentenced to 23 years in prison, which exceeds the Supreme Court sentencing guidelines in the first trial. And the key issues surrounding the first trial are coming into the spotlight. On the 8th, Pastor JMS's lawyer said Pastor Jung is complaining of injustice and has consistently maintained his innocence, but the court conducted a trial by public opinion, biased by public opinion rather than a trial based on the presumption of innocence and the principles of evidence, even though there was no direct evidence. He added, in a 21st century democratic society, this CGM and Pastor Jung were framed as heretics and subjected to a medieval witch hunt style religious trial, resulting in an incomprehensibly terrible result of being sentenced to 23 years in prison. At the same time, after the first trial verdict, the prosecution and the broadcasting media said that there were numerous victims of sexual crimes committed by Pastor Jung. But if you look a little more closely at the contents of the trial and its progress, you can immediately see that there are problems with the facts of the accusation, the facts of the indictment, and the trial procedure. The defense team said Pastor Jung's trial is because the accusers filed the complaint about 4 years after being victims of a sexual crime. There is no direct evidence such as DNA evidence. The possibility of manipulation of the recording file is high and the evidence is contaminated, and the accusers, there are just so many questions, including the lack of credibility of their statements. Nevertheless, the prosecution requested Pastor Jung to receive a heavy sentence equivalent to a criminal who committed murder in a heinous manner. This is a strong prejudice against religion and sexual crimes. This is the result of the court's procedural justice being seriously damaged. One of the issues argued by the defense is whether the premise of Pastor Jung's indictment, that the accusers were brainwashed, is established. It is said that the plaintiffs lived a life that was far from isolated from society, going abroad freely and not going to church for a month, depending on their mood. In order to brainwash church members, you have to indoctrinate them with doctrine, but since these people are already living outside of the doctrine, can they be brainwashed? The defense explained, not a single premise of the indictment has been proven, so the indictment has not been legally proven. The defense also argued the prosecution violated the principle of clarity of criminal legalism, which is a major principle of criminal law interpretation. In this case, the trial was conducted without a clear proof of concept, even from the word brainwashing, which was the main premise of the indictment, the defense lawyer pointed out. It can be seen that the crime is being defined by the claim of brainwashing and inability to resist, which is an unclear concept outside of the law, and this is directly contrary to the principle of clarity in criminal legalism. He also said, considering that the majority of members of CGM lead normal social lives, the claim of brainwashing is groundless. In particular, the claim is groundless even when looking at the free private lives of the accusers. The acceptance of religious views cannot be seen as a violation of the right to self-determination, and it cannot be said to be brainwashing. He also argued the prosecution states impossibility to resist in the indictment, but the prosecutor did not mention anything about special circumstances in which resistance is impossible or significantly difficult. Therefore, the prosecutor's argument should be rejected. The defense team also stated, in Pastor Jung's trial, the legal principle of criminality and the principle of presumption of innocence were not followed. The defense lawyer said, all charges in this case are based on the premise of brainwashing, but the accusers were not brainwashed. There is no conclusive direct evidence other than the statements of the accusers. Therefore, there is no proof of the crime in this case, and there is no presumption of innocence under the Constitution. The principle must be observed, he emphasized. He also raised objections to the contents of the prosecution's indictment. The core issue is that there are only claims and no proof. The defense said, for example, while claiming brainwashing, the subject of the act was not specified. The date, place, and object of the brainwashing act were not specified, and the accusers did not state when and where and from whom they received such brainwashing. The defense argued, what matters is whether Pastor Jung's crime has been proven, but since it was not proven, he is not guilty. So that is the end of the article, but a very, very interesting one because it kind of just goes over what our argument is in the first trial and why we considered it wrong, right? So the two big things that they were trying to emphasize, that our defense is emphasizing is, number one is there's no presumption of innocence, right? And the principle of trial by evidence. So the entire basis of Sunsim's trial, because there is no evidence, it was based solely on the accuser's statements, right? And, basically they're saying one of the big things that they said in the trial is that these girls were brainwashed and they had the inability to resist. However, during the trial, they couldn't prove the brainwashing, which is like the main premise of the incident, that they could not resist, right? So these are like really, really big key issues that this article is going over, and I hope it's something that kind of opens our eyes to, what actually happened during that trial, right? Because I think when you look at what Sunsim went through, you can say, he has every right to complain of injustice. And but this trial has turned into a trial by public opinion, right? Like, it's not based on the presumption of innocence, because it's based, it's the way it is. It seems like they're already judging him as guilty from the very beginning, right? So, there's a bunch of different things, like especially when it comes into public opinion. For instance, the prosecution and the broadcasting media said that there were numerous victims of sexual crimes by Sunsim, right? And of course, as they're looking at, there's a huge problem with, because you will immediately see through the facts that this accusation has major problems with it, right? Just by looking at the evidence, it's like, well, how can you just say that there's numerous victims? And also the defense team, another review part that I thought was really good. The prosecutors will say, hey, you can't get any DNA evidence because it's 4 years after the crime, right? But even though they don't have DNA, even the evidence of the recording file, they said the possibility of manipulation of the recording file, we know now, is very high. The evidence is contaminated, right? And there's such a lack of credibility with the statements of, even though the entire trial, since there's no evidence, is based on the accuser's statements, and even then, there is a lack of credibility in the accuser's statements too, right? Which means some things are contradictory, right? So this is why they're like, this doesn't really make much sense that he's getting such a high sentencing, which is even more than the Supreme Court suggests. And this is one of the reasons why we're able to appeal it. And then on top of it, there's just so many holes and so many things here that we can't really look at it, right? It's hard for us to really see. Like, the one point that I really liked was, if they're really if we are all really brainwashed, Why do we struggle so much with people trying to get them to come to service or do pre-dawn, right? Like, why do we struggle so much? It's because people are free. We're free to live the life we want to live. And that one thing I thought was so on point was people miss service for a month at a time because of their mood. And everyone out there, guys, I'm pretty sure you guys know what that means. Like, we've all experienced that before where people just don't come because they don't feel like it. That's not brainwashing at all. And, the vast majority of people, we're pretty normal, right? We are pretty normal. And we come out with our own free will to believe or not believe. So it's very, very interesting how this article came out, and I hope it's something that you guys can listen to and say, oh, this makes a lot more sense now. This is what they were saying here, right? And it gives us a better idea of what the big things that the prosecution was trying to say about Sunseam also. But really, I liked it. I enjoyed it, and hope you guys enjoyed that article too. Go ahead, listen to it over and over again. There's a lot of different things in there that you guys could take from too. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is the end of Provi in the media. Just that one article. Sunseam's his first trial for the appeal is going to be March 5th. So I hope that all of us can pray for that too. All right. So there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Tuesday podcast. Hope you guys super enjoyed it just as much as I have. Enjoy your entire Tuesday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the morning